we're in a surreal moment, and I do want to understand how we got there. Bear with me, listeners, for a moment as we look at the headlines of the present day, because it is one of the most confusing, perplexing, frankly. I mean, I don't really know how to unpack this, because we should start with the biggest story up top. I'm hoping you can help us make it make sense. Gold Cup, the last competitive set of games for this team before we compete on home soil, co-hosting the 2026 Men's World Cup next summer. We're a year out pretty well. And when the squad was announced, the most surprising thing was who was not on it rather than who was. Chief amongst them, Christian Pulisic and Yunus Musah, both of whom, it turns out, had asked to be left off the team. Musah doesn't make a lot of sense here. He started just, I think, 26 games for Milan this season, all comps. But for Christian to be absent, I mean, he is the team's undoubted crown jewel. And US Soccer had to put out their own statement about Pulisic because the player himself was silent, as was his club, AC Milan, which is unusual in itself. And the US Soccer statement, they made it clear in kind of roundabout language that the absence was initiated by Christian and his team, quote, approaching the federation and the coaching staff about the possibility of stepping back this summer, making it clear it's the player's choice. Again, this is complex, takes a little bit of unpacking. But when you first heard, Clint, I mean, you're a gent who represented our nation 141 times. You fought back from heart procedures to play for the United States of America. What was your initial reaction to this news?
I'm a big fan of Christian. I think what he's been able to do for both club and country has been amazing. And in terms of American players who are playing abroad, I mean, him and Anthony Robinson have been the most consistent and the top players in terms of flying that flag for us. In terms of his situation, I can't say what it is. I don't know the ins and outs of it. But in terms of my situation, when I played in Europe and came back, there were times where I was tired. I had to get a PRP injection in my adductor. I had to maybe rest for some of the friendly games so that I could be fit to play in the tournaments, whether it was Gold Cup, whether it was Copa, whether it was Confederations Cup, whether it was the World Cup. Like, I wasn't going to miss competitions. That's just the kind of guy that I always was. So for me, I don't understand it because that wasn't my mentality. I always wanted to play in those games. But I mean, if I think about if there was ever a time that I didn't want to go in, it'd probably be when I was in my 30s, when Jurgen was the coach and asked me to go into January camp. And I'm like, bro, it's the last thing I want to do after a long season, go into damn January camp. All you're going to do is fitness. We have to do a chilly game away from home and then come back and play Panama and LA. And yeah, I complained. I was talking.
Who are you venting to?
Everybody. I'm venting to everybody, man. Everybody's like, man, they're probably tired of hearing me. I'm complaining to my wife and kids, my mom and my dad. I mean, teammates, you know what I mean? I'm not proud of it, but it is what it is. But I still go, I still travel, and I still do what I got to do. I mean, that's just who I was. I mean, I remember having a calf tear and my first game back when I was at Tottenham. My first game back was the damn Denver game in the snow. You know what I mean? Is that a game you should be playing in your first game back from injury, being out for 4 weeks from a grade 2 calf tear? Probably not. But I hadn't even played a game with Tottenham, and I was coming back to play in that game. You know what I'm saying? The only times I missed games was like if I didn't get called in, I had the heart procedure that I had to get 2 of them when the U.S. was struggling in the beginning of qualifying for 2018. I missed those games when Jurgen got fired. And then I had to get another procedure done to get it fixed. But that's the only time I miss games, man. I mean, pretty much if I could be there, I was there. And even if I don't want to be, I still showed up like I talked about in that January camp.
That was a mentality, wasn't it, for you guys? I do remember, like, it's before WhatsApp. So in the pre-WhatsApp chat group age, you guys would, like, mock each other. If there was even a rumble, you weren't going to turn up. You'd almost bully each other into coming mentally right.
Well, for me, it was just kind of like, I can't control anybody but myself, but I knew what it was like to try out for teams and not make it growing up. I knew that when I represented my country, I was represent for the ones that didn't make it. You know what I'm saying? The buddies that I played with, the people that maybe got injured, or my older brother, he never got the opportunity to go that far in the game. You know what I'm saying? I knew I had a responsibility to represent for my country, my state, my city. So every time I got the chance, I mean, it was kind of like tomorrow's never given for you. You don't know when it's going to be the last opportunity. So I was always making up for lost time. I wasn't the kid who went pro early. So I don't know how it is to be in that scenario. Like I didn't go pro until I was 20. So I felt it was a race against time the whole time during my career. And then when I decided to hang it up is when there was no more national team for me. Once they weren't bringing back veteran players after we didn't qualify for 2018, there was nothing for me to really shoot for. No disrespect to club, but national team was what motivated me the most in my professional career.
That is fascinating. And I want to talk about that because I do think that that's kind of the crux of the difference between, you know, the 90s generation, the 2000 generation, and this modern moment. But for Christian, part of it is we do not know what's going on. You nailed that. We really don't. There's conjecture. I mean, this gentleman has played 50 games, second straight season. He's never reached that mark in any previous season before that. There's been reports of a calf injury. There's reports that Christian is mentally drained. And it is very, very difficult from the outside to judge because it can be very different from the inside to what the rumour mill is saying. I do think a statement from Christian's side would really, really help in this moment. But he's not the first American attacking duel who's grappled with the need for a break. You know, Landon Donovan had a famous sabbatical, took off 144-ish days in 2012-13. In that moment, he was your teammate. He was your fellow goal scorer. He had to step off. He really did. You know, Jurgen Klinsmann never got his head around how a human being, a competitor, could do that. From the inside, how did you process and understand it?
It's one of those situations where I don't know what Landon was going through during that time. All I can do is control what I can, and that's doing the most when I'm with the team. But at the same time, the analogy I use is you have the opportunity to go plant the crops, harvest the crops, and then you're sitting at the table when it's time to eat, and you're showing up when it's time to eat. It's kind of like, where were you when we were grinding in the sun, putting that stuff out there? And you know, like the away games, you're back against the wall and must-win situations. And don't get me wrong, there were times where I was a rookie, right, coming into the national team, and I wasn't a part of the World Cup qualifying, but it wasn't because I didn't choose to be there, right? But if you're a main guy and you had the option to be there, once again, I don't know what he was dealing with and what he was going through, but that's the hard part is like to build your teammates' trust and all that. You got to go through the wars with them, the battles with them. You got to be able to look and say, hey, they're not going to flake on you. When your back's against the wall and you need to win, they're going to be right there with you. So I can't say what their situations were, but that's how I looked at that.
For Pochettino in this moment, I'm sure he's in shock. As an Argentine, the very notion that players would not die, would not kill, probably would not murder each other to wear the shirt of, to represent their nation, is probably a complete and utter kind of footballing cultural anathema to him. But there is a side of this story that the side story is really depressing to me, if I'm being honest, Clint, is that this moment is a reminder of just how far we still have to come as a true footballing nation here in America. Because in real footballing nations, there'd be a massive media outcry about all of this. Here, outside of our little soccer bubble, it's honestly cricket. No one knows that any of this is happening. Put another way, can you imagine what would happen if, say, Harry Kane, what would happen to Harry Kane's England career if he decided to sit out the Euros? If Callum Hudson-Odoi is not chosen after his season, all of this would be massive media debate. The reality is, this is a reminder that football is still played in the shadows here. We still have work to do as fans of the game. There should be so much more noise. How quiet it is right now is really the frightening part of all of this.
No, you're right. I mean, definitely, if you were in England, it'd be on Sky Sports all day long. It'd be in the papers. Here in the States, it would be on every show, ESPN, Fox, everything. It would be talked about and covered, and there would be something going on all day on the major sports channels that are there. So
the Prime Minister would probably have to address it, Clint. It would become like in Parliament, it would be, we have to get Harry Kane. What is Harry Kane doing? It would become like the number one front page item as well as the back page item. Here it's totally cricket.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be a bigger issue if it was Copa America or something like that than a Gold Cup. But at the same time, it still would be an issue. It still would be talked about. You had a chance to represent your country in a tournament and you're fit and you're not injured and you're choosing to not play. It's hard for some people to get their minds wrapped around that. I mean, that just wasn't my mentality, but I don't know what people are dealing with and what they're going through and how their body feels. But we need to get everything back on track. We need to get back to winning. We need to get a buzz about this team going into the World Cup. And right now, we don't have that. And you talk about best generations. So it goes from the potential of being one of the best generations. And I hope I'm wrong in this situation in terms of how I'm thinking. But to not get out of the group of Copa, being the first host country to not do that, to losing in a semifinal game to Panama and to Canada on home soil in the stadium they're going to play in the World Cup in 2026, then don't do well in this Gold Cup, don't get to the final, don't win it. And then let's just, God forbid, you don't get out of the group in the World Cup. It goes from being potentially where people are saying one of the best generations to, I think, possibly could be one of the worst. I hope that's not the case. I hope we win this Gold Cup. I hope we ball out in the World Cup. And because, I want to root for this team. I'm a fan of this team. All I can go off is my own experiences. And I remember having a hurt groin. And I remember having to get a PRP injection into my groin, missing the Scotland game there was another game that I missed that was friendlies, but I was available to play in the Gold Cup, or I was available to play in a Copa America, or I was always available to play in the tournaments and did what I had to do. I remember going into the World Cup 2014, there was a game I had another growing injury where I had to miss a friendly. I think the game was out in California or something like that. But I made sure that I was available for the tournament and got my body right. So if that means you taking a break and missing some of the friendlies, I see that. I'm on board with that. That's what I had to do. But you have a chance to play in the tournament. I prided myself in scoring in every major tournament or every tournament that I played for this country. That's just something I look forward to doing. Is what I'm going to do. When my name is called, I'm there. I want to show up and I want to represent, and I want to not look back and regret not making an impact on any tournament that I was in.